we have what we call the CSS at rules. Now, these provide instructions for what CSS should perform or how it should behave. We have two common ones, import and media. But let's deal a little bit with import. We can use import to import a CSS file into an HTML document. We can also use import to import a CSS file into another CSS file. So, kind of like inheritance between CSS files. We have our web page here. We can actually change the dimension. Currently, there is no CSS applied to it. So it's just basic default CSS, our header and our paragraph. So we can import a CSS into this HTML. This is our CSS file. H1 is coral. And for the paragraph, we have purple and italics. So to import, we simply have our style, and then all we need to do is to import. Now, this also works if we are in a CSS file and we want to import a CSS file into another, and we can use that. However, this is quite straightforward. In this situation, now we have our CSS functioning, but we have another way or another at rule or CSS at rule, and that is the media query, which is a very common one you might see. Now, media query is a way to target a browser using a certain characteristic or feature and telling CSS to run a code based on that. We have two H1s here. The first H1 says, hey, make H1 green. The second one is a query. Now, what that one says is that for all screens 600 pixel and less, let the H1 have a color red. Now, let's go through the media query. The at media, of course, is the rule that we're trying to work with. We now see screen. Now, that determines the type of media we're trying to target. Generally, we're trying to target devices with screens, so that is why that is important. Now we have the features. For example, the width of the screen, you can have resolutions and other things you can work with. Then you have operators, like in this case, we use the AND operator. So we are saying we want to match a screen and a screen that is 600 pixel or less. We're going to demonstrate this, but we have to import it as well. Of course, we can use the normal link, but since we have treated import, we can as well use it to import the CSS. Generally, you might not need to do this, but for this example, I am going to use import. Now, notice that when the width is less than 600, we have a red header. Immediately we have a wide screen, it turns to green. So you can see the web page is responsive depending on the width of the screen. And that is what that media query achieves. So these are simple ways of dealing with CSS at rules. You can make the web page behave depending on a situation.